Welcome to Nightmares Before Bed, a supernatural podcast where each show will explore dark and mysterious places, eerie creatures, and all things spooky and creepy. And speaking of spooky and creepy, please help me welcome your hosts Jonathan Rosen and Troy Cannon.
Hello, and welcome to another edition of Nightmares Before Bed. I'm one of your hosts, Jonathan Rosen, along with Troy Cannon. And today we're going to talk about not the Will Smith, Tommy Lee Jones comedy, but we are going to talk about Men in Black, but the phenomenon, kind of. And this was your choice this week, and there's a lot on it. There's a lot of stuff on it. So I'm going to let you explain a little bit about the phenomenon and, what you know about it. Let's just start. So a little brief thing to start.
Okay. The Will Smith movie took a real phenomenon and they sprinkled a little sugar on it and made it more digestible.
Well, based on the comic.
Just
the
like
too.
And Tommy Lee Jones, yeah.
Right, but that one was based on the comic book.
Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah. So just like with Aladdin, where they took the story of the jinn, they sprinkled a little sugar on it, Twilight sprinkled a little sugar on the vampires, and they made it digestible. The reality of it is the Men in Black are a little bit less digestible than Will Smith movie made it. There are people who possibly uncover certain things that have to do with certain areas of the government or more specifically, certain areas of UFO phenomena. If they have legitimate information, a legitimate site, pictures, things like that, they are often visited by one, two, or perhaps even four gentlemen dressed all in black, almost completely devoid of facial image, facial, characteristics, pale white skin, usually a white black hat.
With the fedora,
and,
right?
Yeah, Pompadour, and they come in and they talk to you in an almost robotic voice. Occasionally, one of them is talking to you directly, sternly, and the other one is doing weird things, or he may come in looking like somebody that Mike Tyson or somebody like that. And you'll say to yourself, well, that guy looks like Mike Tyson. And the reason being, after they give you the advice or the warning about whatever it is you think you've discovered, and they leave, if you go to tell someone what you saw, you sound crazy. You give them the description of these people, it sounds off. And then you tell them, well, one guy, the whole time he just kept spinning around in circles. Or the other guy, he looked a lot like Mike Tyson. It helps to make you look crazy so that when you give the story, it's not believable. Sometimes it is believable, but usually that's with someone who is kind of unbelievable. Dan Aykroyd actually got visited by what he presumed to be a man in black. He was doing a television show called Out There. He was doing a show called Out There, and he said he went outside during a taping, and Britney Spears called him to ask him to be on Saturday Night Live with him. And he said, yeah, okay. And he's talking to her, and he said he was smoking a cigarette, and the phone rang. So he reaches in his pocket and he looks up and he sees a car, and there's a man giving him a menacing stare in all black with the little hat. And he looked at it and it's like, that's odd. And then he looked in his pocket, he got his phone, and he talks to her, and he put the phone down. He said it was like, just real quick, look back, the car was gone, the man was gone, everything. But the road he was standing on, you would have had to cross his field of vision to leave, and he never saw the car leave. He didn't see it come, he didn't see it leave, but he's positive he saw it there. And according to him, he said he saw the Men in Black. Now, knowing that he does sci-fi stuff and he does Ghostbusters, he's also a comedian. And at the time that he originally told the story, he was doing a show, so it could be some type of propaganda for the show. Even though he gave a straightforward story, the situation makes it non-believable.
That's in. I didn't hear the Ben Aykroyd story. That one I didn't
Yeah.
hear. I know that he said he's seen UFOs. I don't know about real aliens, but I know that he's seen UFOs before. I've heard him talk about that. I didn't hear the Man in Black story. This thing, from what I read, this has been going on like decades, like since I think the 40s or 50s, and there were like several, and you probably saw them too. Like one of them, it was 1947. Harold Dahl claimed the man in dark suit warned him not to discuss his UFO sighting. It was on Maury Island. But here's where it started in the 50s. It was like, Albert K. Bender. He said he was visited by men in dark suits, threatened and warned him not to continue investigating UFOs. And from everything that I read, that Bender's the first one to like really talk about this. And then he stopped. From everything I read, that he kind of stopped because he felt threatened. And none of these stories are like you saw in the movie. It's just like this humorous thing. Every single one seems like threatening. Like it's, don't talk about this anymore, or don't pursue this anymore. And the only thing that I've seen is that it's like the movie kind of, is that they claim that that either the threats or that they do have like this mind swipe type thing to make you forget things. That's the only thing that I've read. And they don't know, and it's like kind of what you just mentioned, that they don't know if it's human or aliens themselves that appear like this, telling you not to pursue anymore. Don't look anymore. We don't know if they're humans or aliens, but I have so many cases that I read. So when did you first start reading about this?
Well, when I was real little, when I was like 7 or something, I've always had um images, in the background and in the foreground and the background. I've seen things, I've sat places, even like I said, and it started out when I was like maybe 6 or 7 or something like that. And I would see real quick someone take a peek into the room or something like that. And at night,
Well,
I
that's the
would
thing we talked about
see
last time. You were like these feelings that you get for other things, other.
ex exactly. And I,
Okay.
I could feel that. And I sometimes think it is 100% a spooky, ghostly, demonic type thing. But on occasion, it feels like it's otherworldly. And the images behind you right now, I've seen that late at night, images of dark, shadowy figures with the hats on. And when I was little, I would convince myself that it was a family member checking on me before bed or something like that. And I would tell myself that, and I'd get under the covers and go to sleep. So I have had images that could have possibly been something like that since I was really young. The first time I ever heard about it, I was probably 17, maybe 16, 17, something like that. A few years before I went into the service, I had heard about it. And I had heard that what I had heard was if you see an alien, if you see a something and it's not really alien, then you just saw something. But if you saw something and it was in fact alien, these guys would come and get you. And in the beginning, I was under the impression that these were government agents that would wag a finger at you and tell you not to do this or that or the other. Um, when I joined the military, I saw a movie called Alien Autopsy, and some of the people that were in that said that they were, this was about the
Wasn't that
Roswell landing.
wasn't that movie debunked, like that it's not real, the alien autopsy stuff?
They said that it wasn't real, but then, I mean, there was so many parts of it that seemed like it
Oh.
might have been. But one of the people that they talked to in that movie, well, two of the people that they talked to said that um, they were interviewed by two men. One guy said he was interviewed by two men in black. One guy said he was interviewed by two government agents. And from the research that I did, recent research, like just a few days ago, getting ready for this video, I found out that there are men in black, and there are potential men in black that come and they come with military or government type credentials, and they tell you they're government, but they still look like like the alien men in black type guys. So he described them as being off, the government guys. The other guy described them as being in black, but both of them got menacing threats. So that's when I was like, oh wait, these guys can be government or something else. What's the something else? So over the years, I figured out that it was potentially aliens pretending to be humans. So my first potential thought about them was when I was really young. My actual knowledge of Men in Black was in my teens, and thinking that they might be aliens and not humans was maybe a couple years after the military, or actually maybe during the military, to be honest. And that was that was more frightening to me that they were coming here and either along with the US government and other governments, possibly, they were threatening people or just infiltrating the government and pretending to be agents
Human.
of whatever agency and threatening people. So that was a little scary both ways.
Now, I think we touched upon this too. I'll go into what you said in a second, but you and I touched about this, I think, in the first episode. Have you seen a UFO in your life?
Yes. I uh I saw I saw one when I was again in my teens,
In Pete?
and I immediately,
In St. Pete?
in St. Pete.
Because I
In
saw
St.
one in
Pete.
St. Pete too.
Yeah. Okay. I
So
remember
I
you
wonder if
saying
it's
you
the
saw
same
one. I
time.
wasn't sure where.
Yes. I was in St. Pete
St.
at the
Pete
time, but go
might
ahead.
be infiltrated. But I saw one in St. Pete. I was walking home. I was at on the track team. I was walking home from the track. I had my cleats over my shoulder, had my bag over my other shoulder, and I'm walking like this, holding both things, and I'm walking and when we get off the bus, there's like 25 of us. As we start moving towards the gate, people are going towards different gates. When we get to the front of the school, there's like 10 of us. When I head towards the street that I'm going to go down, there's one of us. So it goes from a crowd and it dwindles down to just me moving by myself. And maybe 200 yards walking by myself, I saw a light flash over my head. And I saw it and I was like, oh, okay, fallen star, I should make a wish. And then I saw it again coming back the other way. And I was like, I don't know if they do that. That's not right. So I'm looking at it and I'm walking around and I'm looking in the sky. And then I saw it again. And then it was like, I don't know, from the ground to the sky and out, it was probably miles away, but I could see it. And it was just sitting there. And I was like, it should be going. And I'm trying to convince myself that it's still a star. I'm like, it should be falling, it should be moving, but it's not moving. It's like stuck there. And I'm walking and I'm walking through, and for some reason, it's the middle of the night. I'm walking by myself, and it didn't occur to me that I was in any type of danger. I was like, or that there was something happening besides my confusion. I was like, a star got stuck in the sky. That's weird. It's just sitting there. And I walked for a little while, and then it moved and it shot away again. A couple days later, I told somebody about it, and they was like, that was an alien. It wasn't an alien. And then it dawned on me. I was like, wait a minute. That might have been a UFO for real, because it was definitely a UFO, because it was unidentified, at least by me. I couldn't identify it. So I didn't know what it was. And that's what UFO is, unidentified flying object. It was definitely flying, and I didn't know what it was. So it was definitely a UFO. I don't know if it had little green men in it, but I didn't know what it was. And it was flying, and it was some type of an object. And it was not really, not really saucer-ish, more like a really thick pancake, it looked like. And I saw that and I was like, huh. And I didn't think about it at the time as being a potential, UFO. I was just like, wow, that's weird. And I just kept walking, went home, went to sleep, yada, 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 and left. But if I'd have taken a picture of it, and then I would have brought the picture to school and started showing people, I'd have probably got a knock on my door the very next day by some dudes telling me to
Oh,
stop it.
who has cameras like that? Like now, everyone has a camera on them. We didn't have that back then. So,
Yeah.
but I was also in St. Pete, and like I was just outside my house. I wasn't on the track, even believe it or not. It's I was outside my house at night. You were at my house a lot in the backyard. You can see all those stars and everything very clearly. So, you know, I saw this like kind of like weird. It wasn't moving the way that a straight thing should. It's like kind of zigzagging a little bit. It was like such a weird thing. A star doesn't do that. A shooting star doesn't do that. Planes don't do that. It was just such an odd thing. And then I remember the next day on the news, it was like they talked about people, reporting these things, and it's like kind of, how it was then. They kind of like make it this jokey fashion, like they kind of making fun of everyone. So you don't talk about this much,
Yeah.
especially then. But that's what I remember seeing, and that I remember that being on the news. Like, it was a small segment. It wasn't even a big thing, but it was a small segment that just people reported seeing this light, and then they made some joke about it. But that like validated my feelings, but I saw maybe kind of not usual, not normal, not of this earth. So that's what I did feel that. But going back to your point with the Men in Black, what they are, to me, I have zero doubt that we've been visited. This as a, this world, this country, whatever it is. And we interviewed someone this week on a pop culture retro, who's he said, he's talking about his father, and he would be a good guest for this show, actually. His father was in Roswell at the time of the crash in the 40s. And his father never mentioned it to him as a kid, never as a kid. It was only later on in life that they were watching TV and something came on about Roswell that he said, oh, I was there, and that he helped develop pictures that the army took, and he had never spoken about it before then. So, we were thinking, the same thing. If this guy's father was there and never spoke about it to his family for decades, there's only one reason for that. You have to be putting the fear of God into you. You cannot talk about this. And that's what leads me to believe that, yeah, that something like the Men in Black, seem plausible. Go and visit either, if you talk about this, say goodbye to your kids the next day. Say goodbye, your family the next day, or whatever it is. You have to be so scared to not talk about something like what you said before. They're going to make you look like an idiot if you do. But it's much more logical to me that it's humans doing this than aliens coming over and saying, threatening other humans from seeing. But I do think it's human. But go ahead to your points. But I have some other things here that I was reading about. But go ahead.
Um, I saw a story. I saw a story a long time ago, and I revisited it a few days ago. There was a hotel near um, Niagara Falls, and the hotel manager and one of the security guards saw what they claimed was a flying saucer. Now they took pictures of it, and this was like 2008, so they had fairly good cameras. The cell phones aren't like they are today, but in 2008, it's better than a Polaroid. You can get a pretty good shot. So they took pictures of it. The next day, two men in black came to the hotel and were aggressively questioning the staff for the guy, Shane Sovar, and the security guard. Shane was the manager. He wasn't there. He was gone. The security guard, there was a different security guard there. They questioned him, they threatened people, and then they left, said they would be back. Later, Shane came to work and the staff told him what happened. And he was like, well, I don't know those guys. And then the security guard said, well, let's check the security tape. He checked the security tape, and they have images of two very tall men
I read that too. That they're supposed to
walking
be very
over,
tall. Yes.
very tall, and they're in the men in black getup, the black suits with the black tie, white shirt, the black hat, and the film. It was 2008, so the security video, again, isn't as good as today, but it was good enough that you could see them clearly walking into the building. And there's a guy that, as they're coming into the building, he kind of walks past them and goes to the side, but he's visually disturbed by what he sees because he is kind of looking back at him, doing like that, checking them out, looking them up and down when they walk in. There's a video of them coming in and a video of them leaving. And it's supposed to be the only video of actual men in black. Their height and their skin color was definitely off. If it was a prank, they reported this to the police and everything. If it was a prank, it's very elaborate because they had to find two gigantic basketball player type guys to paint themselves up and to come in and the whole shebang. And so there's actual video of that. There's another guy, I can't remember his name. He had found a piece of material that he said was a part of an alien ship. He kept it. He took it home. The next day, he gets a phone call, and people are like, a guy is like, "Hey man, I heard you found, that piece of spaceship, dude. Can I come over there and check it out? I work with another alien research thing, and we're putting some evidence together." And he's like, "Yeah, man, come on over." He said no sooner than he hung his phone up, he looked outside, and two men were coming up his doorstep. So he told him he didn't feel right. He told him he didn't have it. They threatened him, and then one of them started looking around his house. And he's like, "Hey, hey, 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 you guys got to get out of here." And the first one looks at him and says, "If you want your wife to stay beautiful, you'll give us that piece of spaceship." And they leave. He says for the next few days, he witnessed one or both of them outside his house or near his home watching his house. He told a guy, don't remember the other guy's name either, but he told another guy, and the other guy came to his house. And when he came there, he said when he pulled up, he saw the dude like standing on the side, peeking at the house. So he took a picture of him. That picture still exists too. So there's supposed to be an actual physical picture of possibly a man in black. He was dressed all in black, had the black hat and everything, and he's kind of peeking around the corner, and you can see enough of him to tell he's fairly tall and he's all dressed in black. Could be a pure coincidence, could have actually been a picture from a different day, but he says that was the picture of the people that were checking that guy out. So I think somebody's out there.
Well, here's again going back to Bender. They say that Bender had his book. It's Flying Saucers and the Three Men. So here's how he described Men in Black. They floated about a foot off the floor. They looked like clergymen, but wore hats similar to Hamburg style. Faces were not clearly discernible, for the hats partly hid and shaded them. The eyes of all three figures suddenly lit up like flashlight bulbs. They seemed to burn into my very soul as the pains above my eyes became almost unbearable. So that's not a human being, what he's describing. But look, who knows what's true or not, what it's being made up. But this seems to be a constant thread to a lot of the UFO visits. And we don't know if it's just, one person hears about the Men in Black and then they just start saying that's what's in the idea in your head. Like you see Men in Black everywhere. Like, if I see a UFO now, I'm expecting to see a Men in Black. So I'm imagining people in dark suits, and everyone in the dark suit must be a Man in Black. So it's kind of tough to tell with that too. But it is interesting that this is constant to a lot of these stories, that there is a Man in Black there. I was looking at different different movies, and you watched X-Files, right? I mean, that was one of these.
Oh yeah,
that was one of the things in there they kind of put
yeah.
there. But and Friends, I was reading there too. But they were even like even things like Dark City or The Matrix has like a variation of this Man in Black type thing. So it is such a, I guess, tied in to the lore that you're going to see it, and it is threatening. And like you said, we know that the government. No, we can't say we know, but I have no doubt that the government has stuff, has
Yeah.
UFOs there too. And what's interesting to me is in the last couple of years, and this is what's crazy. They've kind of been saying this. The Pentagon has said some things, they're unexplained things. They've let NASA, pilots talk about this, that things, strange things they've seen. Well, I don't think this would ever have happened before. And that, they would have taken those pilots and say, you can't talk about this. So if you're having to me, that the government is kind of like saying it, and there's not a big deal being made. People, if the government is saying like, hey, there might be something, and there's not this big panic. One, times have changed. But two, in my mind, it always feels like they're like kind of setting us up for it now. That the big announcement will come soon or whenever it does, but they're like sprinkling little things, little tidbits in now. So we can get used to the idea. So when they finally spring it upon, hey, guess what? And to me, the universe and multiverse, whatever, is way too large for there not to be something. I mean, how egotistical do you have to be to think that we're the only ones in this wide, vast space here too? The only positive to me is that if there must be bad aliens somewhere, but if there were really that bad ones close, they could have easily conquered this planet or not and chose not to. So if they're coming here to visit us, they have technology far surpassing our own. That's the only good thing to me, is that they haven't done anything. And if they haven't done anything yet, it means to me that they're probably more good than not.
I have a friend. It's in St. Pete. He's still in St. Pete now. And I've always been a big believer on a lot of the occult, the supernatural, alien phenomenon, the whole thing, Bigfoot, all of that kind of stuff. I've had an open mind about all of it. So one day we were talking, and he's like, "Man, I just got to ask you, why do you believe in aliens?" And I was like, "Well, why not?" And he said, "Well, if there are aliens out there, why wouldn't they come down here and talk to us?" And I said, "Because they're smarter than we are." And he said, "That doesn't make any sense." And I said, "Well, let me ask you this. Have you ever been to a zoo?" He said, "Yeah." I said, "Have you ever seen a gorilla?" He said, "Yeah." I said, "Have you ever felt that you need to pick up a chair and sit next to it and start talking to it about the jungle?" And he said, "No, of course not." And I said, "Why?" He said, "What could it tell me?" And I said, "Because you're smarter than a gorilla. Why? What would you have to learn from a gorilla? If they are so smart that they can come from a distance so far away that it's unaware, we're even unaware of it, and they can come across that distance here, probably unseen, mostly unseen, and they've probably been doing it for centuries. What would they have to learn from us? They're watching us, probably. They don't need to learn anything from us, you know.
That's exactly what I feel on this as well. Like I said, I read so many things. There's so many cases of the Men in Black. I think today, because of all the technology that we have at our disposal today, with everyone has a camera on them at all times now too.
Mhm.
So because of social media, you go on Twitter and you could type in things about UFOs, and you will get people posting up videos on things from different parts of the world. Because of that, I think it's not, you won't see, if there is such a thing as Men in Black, I don't think you'd see them as much because it's just so easy to get out information out. And maybe, one of the things is that they're counting on this, that people will just like, oh, that's nonsense. And because of things like, AI and Photoshop, people can create things. So maybe that's what the government is, saying that too. Everyone's going to be skeptical about it because, it's so easy to create our own things. You and I could sit on a computer. Well, not me, you could sit on a computer and create a UFO or, that looks realistic, that shows up, that people would swear if you posted on, oh my God, that's really a UFO. You can show landing on, the White House lawn and people would swear it's real. But I think because of that, we don't hear those stories anymore. But I can't believe that there are not government agencies that do investigate these things or do check these things out or monitor you. You know, government to me is not like this nice warm place. There are a lot of secrets that are being kept, a lot of dark secrets that are being kept, and I fully believe that we have, like, the Roswell thing, that we probably have, not to stay contact, we probably have in our possession, alien material or technology or something.
There's supposed to be we were near the Pentagon not that long ago, and there's supposed to be a thing called the TIP, ATIP, and that's supposed to be a government agency at the Pentagon where they do all things alien research, where they um, potentially converse with aliens and potentially uh, hide their stuff, alien stuff. And a guy came out a few years ago claiming that he actually worked for that company and he worked in the Pentagon. The Pentagon confirms that that dude worked in the building, but he had nothing to do with, like, say, Operation Blue Book or anything like that, where the government actually investigates aliens. I think that was like 60 years they had that particular thing open, but they had another project before that. And he said he worked with that. They said he worked in the building, but he didn't work with that. To me, that's skeptical. I'm like, wait a minute. This dude said, I worked in this building where you need crazy security clearance. I worked in there and I know about aliens. And the answer was, well, yeah, he works here, but he doesn't actually know about anything to do with aliens. That blows my mind that I mean, they had to say he worked there because his family knew he went to work every morning.
I think I
And,
know the person you're talking about. Right.
yeah, people are coming in and everything. They got to know about him. To me, there was a story I heard, and the story was actually about a death, a guy dying. But listening to the totality of the story, like if you listen to the Fee Fi Fo Fum story with the giant and the golden goose, the whole time I
Jack and the
heard that whole
Beanstalk, we're
story.
talking.
Which one is it?
Jack and the Beanstalk.
Jack and the Beanstalk. Yeah, I had a mind freeze. Jack and the Beanstalk. The whole time I heard that whole story, the golden goose and everything, I'm thinking he sold his cow for a handful of beans. He could have ate the cow. He can't eat 5 beans. That was the part that stuck out with me. So when I heard the story about this guy dying, there was one particular part that stuck out to me. And my mind just zoomed there and stayed there. There's a dude named Andrew Dawson. He was a TikToker and a YouTuber. And he made, for like a year and a half, he was making videos, almost daily. He was making TikTok videos, YouTube videos. He was doing all kinds of stuff that was just regular run-of-the-mill TikTok stuff, dancing or whatever. And one day he's driving in his car and he looks up at a mountain, and he's at Jasper National Park, and he looks up at the mountain and he sees on video what looks like a gigantic man walking along the mountain. Looks like a giant. And he's like, there's a giant. And his buddy sitting next to him's like, that's not a giant, man. I don't know, that's something on your windshield. And he's like, no, it's moving. And he pulls over so he can videotape it, and he gets like a minute's worth of videotape. That's the start. It's like a whole thing, but I'm going to make it as close to a minute as I can. Later, he goes back, he videotapes again, and the image is gone. There's no thing there, so he knows it's not a pole or anything. He goes back another time and he tries to go down the road so he can get closer to it. The local people tell him, the people that live around there tell him, yeah, we see a giant all of the time. He's always walking around through the woods and everything. So he's thinking, Bigfoot or something. So he tries to go further down the road, and the military's there. And they stop him and they tell him, they approach his car and tell him he can't come down here, to go away. He leaves. He comes back about a week later, and he's all his stuff's on TikTok. He comes back about a week later. His name is Andrew Dawson. Comes back about a week later. He goes back, and he's like stopped again by the military. And he's like, well, what's going on down here, man? What's going on? And they're like, you can't come down here. And he's like, okay. He goes back to the mountain a couple of days later and he sees this gigantic black helicopter moving something around. And he's like, something's going on up there in that mountain. He's recording all of this. He's printing all of it on TikTok. For about a month, there's nothing. And then he comes back with his hands in his pocket. I'm sorry, I skipped a part. So later, he's recording and he goes outside his house because there's a black car. When he got stopped by the military, there's military vehicles and a black car. Later, in front of his house, and it's all on TikTok, he's recording it. That black car is in front of his house. So he yells at him, which I would not have done, but he yells at him. He's like, hey, what are you doing around my house?
Yes.
I would have looked out there and seen him and called the cops or something. I'm not going out there. That's not my job. And he goes outside his house. He's like, hey, what are you doing outside my house? And they zoom off away. And he goes out and he doesn't get the tag license, but he follows him with his camera. A couple nights later, the car's out there again. And he calls his buddy on the phone. He's like, the car's back. And he's like, record him. So he records the car, and like as if they knew, they just shoot off again. So then he said that he's approached by somebody. Someone gets out of the car and comes to his house and tells him he needs to stop recording. He says, okay. Then he doesn't record for like a month. Then he does a video where his hands are in his pocket and he's kind of looking at the camera and he's like, hey, I just wanted to tell everybody that everything I did was fake. It was all just a big joke. And he's looking off camera. He's clearly looking off camera
Reading.
at somebody, like giving him, telling him what to say. And he's like
a hostage video.
It's just as a joke. And he does that, right? Did you see the video?
I've not seen no, but
I'll have to send it to you. And he's got his hands in his
included in here. Yeah.
And he's clearly terrified. And he does, and it's like he didn't do it because he was like doing like regular TikTok videos, and all of a sudden he had a long stream of this alien stuff. Then maybe a week later, he titles the video "I'm terrified" or "I'm scared" or "They're out to get me." Some type of knowledge that he's in danger. He types, I think he said, "I'm terrified," and he makes another video real quick, walking through his house, and he said, "Hey, this is probably going to be my last video. That video I sent was fake. The last one, they forced me to do it. Everything I said before was real, and they're probably out to get me. I don't know. This is probably going to be my last video." It could all have been a joke.
Right.
But 7 days later, that guy got finger across the throat. He's perished. He is unalived right now.
Getting fingered is a different type of thing entirely.
Well, he got him all across his throat.
Okay.
So unless
these are two different things.
Unless he's into some kind of crazy stuff I'm not aware of, they perished him.
You were saying this guy got fingered. I was like, oh, it doesn't sound so bad.
You're like, well, good for him.
Exactly.
But he was killed, and they didn't print any cause of death. They just said that he died.
Well, that's like all the UFO things. They never report.
Yeah, and see, my thing is, I watched that whole video, and it was supposed to be a sad thing about a TikToker dying. But my thing is, this dude saw something. He recorded something, and he put it out in the world. Somebody told him, some shady figure told him to stop. He didn't, and then they gave him, the Elvis treatment. He's hanging with Elvis now, and I'm thinking. Immediately I was thinking, oh, that's Men in Black. Way back, like a year ago. I don't even think it was a year ago, like 8 months ago or whatever it was, when this guy died. I was thinking, that's the Men in Black. They told him to stop. They told him, and he was like, nope. And they paid him another visit. And he even says in his video, he's scared. And I'm pretty sure he says they're gonna get me or something like that. And then a week later, he was got.
It's like reporting on Boeing. You've suddenly died.
So when we print this, we have to say, no offense to the Men in Black. If you see this, we're not actually talking about you.
I respect what you do. I'm a fan.
I love your color scheme.
So I think we got a good covering today about about the Men in Black. So let us know what you guys think. Let us know if you've seen any. First of all, let us know if you've seen any aliens. If you've seen any Men in Black. If you're willing to admit, whether you believe, not believe, or you've heard any good stories about it. But again, I'm Jonathan Rosen with Troy Cannon. This has been Nightmares Before Bed. And please like, comment, and subscribe.
Right.
Thank you for watching Nightmares Before Bed. And now, it's time to shut the lights, close your eyes, and go to sleep. If you can.